Hi, my name is Jennifer Jeswale, Gesuale. I am doing this video to try to let you know what Grace Life Church in Monroeville, who is always on the news and a highly controversial church in Pittsburgh, has done and is doing to me and my family. I moved here from Ohio 15 years ago, and I started attending Grace Life Church. I was in a semi-abusive relationship at the time, but I was pregnant and having his baby here in Pittsburgh. I started going to Grace Life Church hoping that we could make this relationship work, and they knew about some of my issues, but they encouraged us to get married anyways, and that life was going to be great. So in the big scheme of things, they saw me and my ex as dollar signs and worker bees. I then became Pastor Buck's secretary, which his wife was Amy Schaefer was not happy about. And I was told by Amy's sister-in-law that I was not to ever speak to Pastor Buck. And basically I was not to speak to him in person, make eye contact with him or sit next to him, which obviously all of those odd rules as someone's secretary went straight out the window the first day that I started working for him. So we went there for years. I worked there as his secretary, and I was highly involved in the church. I ended up having 2 more children, and I took them to church there every Sunday. I volunteered in every area of the church, including children's, mainly children's, I should say. And then my ex and I were having problems throughout our marriage, and we consulted Pastor Buck many times for our marriage problems. And then we got the new church building there in Monroeville in 22, and my ex remodeled the bathrooms in a pinch, worked, 80 hours in a week to redo these beautiful bathrooms. And then Pastor Buck, refused to pay him all the money, the money that he was owed. And it was a big uproar, but I had already been wanting to leave the church because I had been shunned basically since day one due to Amy Schaefer not liking that I was her husband's secretary, and all the shunning repercussions that came mainly just from the women in the church who didn't like Amy anyways. Everyone at that church is a Pastor Buck follower, but regardless, so we were ready to leave the church. We left the church, and then our marriage went up in flames, which is a very high profile, ongoing custody, divorce, criminal law warfare battle for 3 years now that is highly undeserved on mine or my children's parts, but this has all been done to us. So everything that I'm about to tell you now going forward is all true information, and everything I had told you is true, but everything I can tell you going forward, I can prove is true information. I can back it up with facts and documents to prove that it is true. So my ex and I separate. I'm trying to leave this abusive marriage, as I still am 3 years later. We separated 3 years ago in September, and there has been a lot that has gone down. Check my old Facebook page, Jennifer Conley Jeswale, that I'm locked out of. And then I ended up losing my children and a year into this divorce process, and that my children have been kept from me. When my children, and this is not deserved for me or my children to be kept from each other. So I am fighting to get my kids back. When my ex got custody of my kids, who he only wanted every other Saturday night the first year of our separation, he and his new girlfriend, Melissa Nagel, started attending Grace Life Church with my kids like one big happy family. So this is confusing to my kids who went there for years since they were born with their mom and dad. Pastor Buck married Gino and I in 2008. And he married us, and we were, we were pretty close with Buck. And so he knew our situation. They all knew, but we left. Sorry. So many rabbit holes. So since they have been taking my kids to Grace Life Church has completely shunned me. They act like they hate my guts. Before I got my kids taken, I knew shit was about to hit the fan. All these things were happening with Gino and I, or around the time actually maybe it was right after I got my kids taken, I text Pastor Buck as my longtime pastor for help. I text him for help, and he texts me back, which I have saved, told me to go run and hide, and that they are looking for me. He told me to go run and hide my pastor when I'm reaching out for help. And then so he needs Gino as dollar signs. He doesn't need his wife mad at him because he's helping me. So then I have been going on this basically nightmare roller coaster ride with Grace Life Church, who my kids were being kept completely from me. I was told that it was a pandemic, and don't I know it's a pandemic, and I can't see my kids even on their birthdays in a parking lot. However, I see my children on the news and mainstream social media pages, my ex and my sons at Grace Life Church for not wearing masks. All the while, they're keeping the children from their mother, saying that because of it's a pandemic, but they can go to church every Sunday and not wear a mask. Then Melissa Nagel punched me and assaulted me. She punched me in the head, in the face, at my daughter's dance class in front of my daughter and in her entire dance studio, and assaulted me and was charged for that. And this is a lady who is serving in your children's church, okay? And my ex, I have a 3-year PFA against him for assault, harassment, and rape, okay? And this is a man that is also serving in this church, and who is keeping my kids from me. So this church is celebrating my loss of my children and is trying to brainwash them against me. I then reach out to Pastor Buck in March saying, Buck, what is going on? You know I'm a good person and a good mom. You know me. What are you doing? And at this time, I had already heard that that Buck had married them, even though I am still married to Eugene. Buck went ahead and had a marriage ceremony and married Melissa and Gino, okay? And had a wedding ceremony, married them. That is called bigamy, okay? Because we are still married. Had my kids participate, wedding gown, bridesmaid dress for my daughter, dinner reception after they got married. The same pastor who married me and Gino has now married Gino and his girlfriend, even though we're still married, and in this highly controversial public divorce custody battle. So I know from working there that we do not run background checks on any of the volunteers there. Who knows who the hell works there or volunteers there? Anyways, obviously. So anyways, I call Buck. He's like, you know what, Jen, you're right. I've been wondering what's going on. And I'm like, this girl has punched me in the head, and now I find out you've married them, and blah, blah, blah. So he's like, I want you to come into the church. So I did. I went to the church. I met with Buck. And then we had a conversation about the bigamist marriage and all of these things. And then he agrees to try to help me to get my kids back because he believes that they should be with me as well. So he's like, I'm going to get Gino on the phone now, blah, blah, blah. So long story short, he sets up a meeting with Gino, which I do appreciate this. However, it didn't work, and I told him it wasn't going to. So he sets up a meeting with Gino. He gets Gino on the phone. I hear him talking to him, saying, you're going to give her 50% custody? Okay, we're going to settle this divorce, get 50% custody. So then he brings me back in. The church messages me. They schedule for me to come back into the church building, and they have Gino on this huge screen on a Zoom meeting recorded, and we have this meeting. Well, first when I get to the church, you know, like all these church members, Marianne Finch, Mike Finch, Brady, they're all like being assholes to me. So they're like giving me mean, dirty looks, walking around with their heads down. These are people I fucking worked with. Excuse my language. Me and Marianne Finch were extremely close. We were in life group together for years. She knows this is total bullcrap, but she's going to hang her head low because Amy Schaefer is her boss. And anyways, so thank you, Buck, for trying to help. But it was just to get me to settle down talking about your church is why you helped. So, anyways, so we get Gino on the Zoom meeting after Brady sits down and berates me as a human being and a mother. Fuck you, Brady. And then we get Gino on the phone or on Zoom. I sit down next to Pastor Buck, and it takes a very nice turn, actually. And we're on the Zoom call, I don't know, an hour and a half, and working this out. And I was able to prove that everything that Gino had been telling them is a lie, and that everything that they've been doing to us is wrong. And Pastor Buck really did support me, and he was defending me, and I'm glad because I was scared that he wouldn't. However, I told him, I said, you have to keep him accountable, because we agreed at the end, and I fell on the ground on my knees hugging Pastor Buck, thanking him for working this out, as Gino agreed to give me 50% custody of my children and agreed to settle the divorce with me only receiving pennies on my retirement and no child support, no spousal, which I already was taken away from me like everything else. So anyways, I'm like, great, that's fine, because I just want my kids, and that's all I want. And then maybe these idiots can get married for real, you know? So anyways, Gino agreed to that with his pastor, made an agreement, and I told Pastor Buck, you're going to have to keep him accountable because he won't stick to his word. Well, he didn't, and now this is even a more blown out, drawn out saga, but I need the Zoom meeting from Pastor Buck, and he is refusing to give it to me. And I met with an attorney in the spring who she told me I need to go straight to that church on Sunday, and why hadn't I done this yet, and I didn't demand that I get this Zoom meeting to show to the judge. So I go, and he's not going to give me the Zoom meeting. And since I met with the church, and up until Mother's Day and since then, they start posting all these pictures of my kids every Sunday, like they don't have any other kids that go to that church but mine. I told them to stop. I keep calling Pastor Buck, and he tells me, and the pictures get taken down every time I call or email, but then they just keep doing it, and it's a form of harassment, I believe, towards me. And then I go to church on Mother's Day, and I decide that I need to take my police officer friend with me, and I'm going to try to get this Zoom meeting. I had just met with this attorney on Friday or the week before, and I was near assaulted on Mother's Day. I walked in, I was greeted as, mother, are you a mother? You're going to get a special gift, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know this old couple. See, a friend I haven't seen in a while. And then my oldest son, who is 14, came over and hugged me happy to see his mom in church, and was leading the way upstairs to take me to see my other two children. And my police officer friend was following me, who I'm so kindly and grateful that he went to church with me that Sunday. So then I'm walking up the stairs with my son. These Marshall, what's his name? Guy that skins deers on the side of the road, Huffman, I forget. He approaches me and gets in my face, and so does this other usher, and the usher is like seething in my face and wants me to step outside, and I was in fear that I was going to be assaulted because they surrounded me and were in my face. So then I explained to them that I was with a police officer escort, and we are here to attend church on Mother's Day, the church that I have gone to for years, and where my children are right now today. And they start telling me that I'm lying and that this is not a police officer. So I'm like, well, you can talk to my officer friend, and I'm going to go say hi to my children, which I did. Then they realized that he is a police officer in Monroeville, and they have a whole new tune. And suddenly we are allowed to go sit in church, and I go sit in the front row, and then Marshall comes over and asks me to move to the back. Asked me and the police officer friend to move to the back, and my friend said, Jen, they want us to sit in the back. We're going to move to the back. So we did, and actually that worked out better because I was able to see all kinds of people, like way more people than I would have been able to see and say hi to that I haven't seen in a while, by the place that they were trying to hide me at. And then I left church and waited in the little assembly line to see Pastor Buck, gave him a high five, $20 bill. Buck, I need that Zoom meeting. I've been trying to call you and tell you, well, my video department, I'm going to have to see if they have a, well, there was no video department. It's a Zoom meeting. It was recorded. Send me the link. Well, anyways, they're not going to do it because it makes, at the end of the day, the church and Gino look bad, and they only recorded it thinking that they were going to catch me doing something, and that is the exact opposite of what happened. And this video could help me get my kids back, and they're keeping it from me. And they're celebrating my kids being kept from me because I did not attend that church, nor will I ever be a member of that church again. And they're shunning me because of it and exploiting my children and using them to make money off Gino and to use them as people who can work and volunteer for free at their church, including my own children. So I'm sure there's more, and I'm sorry that I'm yelling, but this is a lot, and if the news could please help me get my story out there. I am just a mother fighting to get her kids back, and this church is keeping my children depressed and abused, and celebrating it, and they did this bigamous marriage, and everything I said. If you could please get this on the news and help me, I'd be appreciative. Thank you.